And we are live here in the garden in RF, Texas, Rockport, Fulton, Texas. We are the PMP. I am your host tonight, TJ Riddell. And boy, do we have some exciting news regarding the college football playoff. When will we have it? Soon we'll find out. But first, we're going to talk about week 6. Week 6 of college football. The recap. First of all, I just want to thank everybody coming on to tonight's show. And I look forward to talking about this. Why am I so happy? Because Texas finally did it. What I have been craving for all my life. Texas shuts out that disgusting program of a college football program, the Oklahoma Sooners, or we should all know them as the Choklahoma Boomers, you know. But before we get into that, I want to get into some college football news that I kind of stumbled upon today. I tell you what, there's rumors flying around that college football, the playoff, is expecting to expand in 2024. Now, this is interesting to me. Like, now they want to move the playoff expansion closer. This is crazy, first of all. Like, I never would have thought anybody who would say there's a lot of push for the college football playoff expansion. The ACC commissioner, Jim Phillips, told ESPN today that there's a lot of push to expand the college football playoff in 2024. Holy shit, folks. We could have the playoff expanding anytime now. It may not be next year, but it could be the year after when Texas and OU finally get into the SEC, possibly. You'll have a different looking Big 12. You'll have a different looking Big 10. I mean, it sounds like to me that the college football playoffs is basically just waiting until everybody's going to their conferences that they're going to next year. This is incredible news because this helps out teams that are better than ranked teams in the top 4 to get in, to finally prove themselves that they're better than that team. Yeah. And from my understanding, the top 4 are going to be conference champions. So SEC, ACC, Big 12, Big 10, and I guess out of the Big 12 or Pac-12. I mean, whoever has the best record, and then the 5th seed will be the other conference champion. But I am super excited about that. I was just leaving work when I saw that. And I got to say, CFP in 2024, when political elections start to happen, that'll take some minds off of politics. I hate talking about politics. I will never talk about politics in my podcast. But this is great news because it takes your mind off of politics because that's too serious. Escape your mind with escape reality with college football. I'm not saying it's imaginary. I'm just saying this is big for us college football fans that love the game, that love to talk about it. And we're about to talk about week 6. And I saw a lot of teams that got exposed. Teams like Michigan in the first half. My goodness. What the hell happened to them? Washington, we'll go over their loss. And then teams that crumbled: Oklahoma, Arkansas, Auburn, and Kentucky's starting to crumble after losing to South Carolina. But I gotta say, week 6 has been awesome to watch. Week 6 has been incredible to me. And my record speaks for itself. And my predictions were pretty spot on and pretty close on some of the games. So let's get into this. Let's start off with the Red River rivalry game where my Longhorns, even though I'm wearing a Coastal Carolina shirt right now representing the Chanticleers, shout out to Myrtle Beach and the Chants. Much love to those guys. But I'm a Longhorn fan priority-wise. That's my number one team, folks. Everybody knows it. That's probably why I'm one-dimensional and I'm delusional once it comes to Texas football. Yeah, I heard about it all over Facebook, all over Twitter. You know, some little Aggie wanted to get his panties in a bunch because I said something bad about Jimbo Fisher. Well, you'll hear about it later tonight. And then I can get you even more pissed off because you're going to be furious with me with what I got to say about that last play. But on to the real game, the real rivalry game, Texas and Oklahoma. Like I said before we ended the podcast last week with my final thoughts, I thought Texas was a well-oiled machine. With Quinn Ewers being there, they were going to look good and smack Oklahoma in the mouth. I didn't say that, but in my mind, I said, we're going to smack them in the fucking mouth. And Oklahoma's defense is probably statistically the worst Oklahoma defense that I have ever seen in my lifetime. You know, and Texas took advantage of that game. Sark won his first Red River showdown against Brent Venables. And I got to say, everybody watch out for Texas this year. Texas blanked out Oklahoma. And Oklahoma was desperate in that game for yards and for scores. Passing yardage total for Oklahoma, 39. Quinn Ewers absolutely killed that passing defense for Oklahoma. And that was a ass whooping. This is the first time since 1998 that Oklahoma has been shut out by an opponent. And I do believe this is the first time since the 1960s that Oklahoma's been shut out by Texas. And that was a 19-0 score. This was 49-0, dog. Bijan Robinson, Quinn Ewers, Jordan Whittington had a hell of a game. He didn't score. He had a fantastic game. 3 yards away from getting 100. Xavier Worthy, prime target, number one target. No doubt in my mind. Jatavian Sanders, dog. But Yeah, I mean, the only I don't know what to say about Oklahoma. This is probably the worst Oklahoma I've ever seen in my entire life. And we all remember that 2005 ass whooping they took. Um, back back when Vince Young was quarterback and Rhett Bomar was quarterback for OU. That was embarrassing for Oklahoma fans. But I have never seen Oklahoma fans walk out of a game. They walked out of a game in the middle of the third quarter. I want to say when Bijan Robinson scored his 11-yard run touchdown against Oklahoma's defense. Or was it the 18-yard pass that Quinn Ewers threw to Jatavian Sanders? And I got to say, if Quinn Ewers wasn't hurt, we could see an undefeated Texas team, possibly a Texas team in the top 10. I'm not saying that they would have beat Alabama. I'm telling you they would have beat Alabama. Alabama's defense is not good, folks. And I'll explain why when I go over the Texas A&M and Alabama game. I was at the bar when that happened, and I told everybody, with Bryce Young gone, they're going to have trouble. I know I said Alabama would crush A&M, but A&M played a good game, and we'll talk about that more. But more about this game, I mean, it just seemed like Texas was ready for this game, was ready for this matchup. And then you look over on the camera where Brent Venables is hugging players and whatnot. Probably a senior, probably his last Red River rivalry game. They were not close to being ready in this game. After that first couple of drives, or first drive for both Texas and OU, Texas put the fucking beat down of a lifetime on Oklahoma. And whew, if I'm the Big 12, I'm concerned because Texas is striking down all the teams that have beaten them last year. And I have a feeling that these next couple of games, Texas is going to be just as good or if not better. But hats off to my Longhorns for finally getting that golden hat once again for the first time since 2018 when Cameron Dicker kicked that amazing field goal. And not only that, it seemed flawless in that game. Yeah, Quinn Ewers threw probably the worst pass I've ever seen in the third quarter, but they were already up 35-0 in that game. So you can't tell me that an interception would change the momentum of Oklahoma. Oklahoma's offense could not run anything. Now, if Dylan Gabriel were there, they might have scored. They would have scored. But the outcome of the game probably wouldn't have changed. Texas would lay the wood and give them an old school butt whipping. And that's what they did in this game. And a lot of OU fans are delusional on Twitter saying, well, we could have scored 12 easy points. 49-12 is not going to win you the game. I'm sorry. But Brent Venables does not look like the guy. He was already ran off by Oklahoma years ago when he was under Bob Stoops. So why did y'all even think for 1 minute that Brent Venables was the guy? Y'all should have contacted Matt Rule. You knew he was on the hot seat for Carolina. You could have convinced him, hey, come coach for us. We'll pay you some good money. I know you're getting paid by Carolina, but you're a good college coach. And you're on the hot seat. You're in a better spot in Oklahoma than Carolina. But no, they went for a defensive coordinator. Usually a bad sign in college football. I mean, look at history. Will Muschamp, mediocre coach as far as a head coach. Defensive coordinator, I would get him as a defensive coordinator. Head coach, absolutely not. But Brent Venables as a head coach, that is unbearable to watch. And I just rhymed, and 2 claps from me. But Texas wins 49-0 against that Oklahoma Sooner team that really needs a confidence booster as they take on number 19 Kansas this week. Next game we're going to be talking about is actually in the top 25 right now. That was the only unranked game that I had for last week, and I don't have any unranked games this week because I wanted to make this video fast, but it seems like I'm going to go over the hour. Boo-hoo. I don't care. But anyway, number 4, Michigan, travels to Bloomington, Indiana to take on the Hoosiers. And it was a scary moment. The running back coach, Hart, collapsed. Mike Hart, he collapsed during that game, and it was deeply concerning for the whole college football world because you're out there in the game. Nobody wants to see the opposing coach or their coach or anybody out there collapsing. And I do believe it does have to do with a heart condition. I'm not too sure, but man, that was a scary moment. But he came back. Good. That's a good thing, but he ended up staying over that night in Bloomington. I'm sure he'll be back on his feet. He's a tough guy from my understanding. And just pray for his health, guys. I mean, that's a scary thing to see, especially at a game where a coach collapses or even a player. We've seen it with Oklahoma, Joe Box. I mean, it's sad. It's really scary and it's sad to see. But, yeah, I mean, very scary moment. But let's talk about the game before we go more into depth about that. J.J. McCarthy had a terrific game. He only threw 1 interception. He threw 3 touchdowns, had 10 incompletions out of 36, 26 completions out of 36 attempts, 304 passing yards. Basilik, 25 for 49, 203 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. So he equaled out. Blake Corum, arguably a top 3 running back. Bijan Robinson, Blake Corum, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs is right behind him. Maybe Trey Henderson if he's healthy, but right now, it's looking like Bijan and Blake Corum are still in the show, running the ball against teams. But he had 25 carries, 124 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown. And Bell, 11 receptions, 121 receiving yards. No touchdowns, though, but he got the yards. But I got to tell you, I am deeply concerned about Michigan as far as the first half. They play to their opponents, like I said last week. They play with their opponents. And the first half ended with a 10-10 score. So that tells you right away, Michigan really struggles in the first half. And they are a second half team. because they exploded in the second half. I mean, J.J. McCarthy went off in the second half with 3 touchdown passes, a 29-yarder to Cornelius Johnson, and then another one to Luke Schoonmaker for 9 yards, and another touchdown for Cornelius Johnson for 9 yards, or for 6 yards. So, Michigan is definitely a second half team. But they didn't look good in the first half. Indiana's tougher than what people think. But I expected a lot better from Michigan in this game. But they got me the win. Makes me 2-0, right? Next game, oh my God, we're in Death Valley. It almost sounded like Rocky Top because apparently Tennessee travels well this year. Heupel and Hendon Hooker takes on Brian Kelly and Jaden Daniels. Now, this was a one-sided affair. I figured it would be a one-sided affair. Tennessee scored 20 unanswered points in the first half against LSU and proceeded to go into the halftime 23-7. As soon as the buzzer ended, a 32-yard field goal attempt by Chase McGrath and puts them up at 23-7. Tennessee did not let up on the gas pedal. They scored 17 more points, and they allowed Keyshawn Boutte to score a 5-yard reception for a touchdown, and they tried to go for a 2-point conversion, but it failed. And then, it was just a complete one-sided affair. Hendon Hooker, 17 for 27, 239 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Pretty low numbers, but very consistent. Very consistent throwing by Hendon Hooker, and he's been able to hit receivers right in the breadbasket. I mean, this kid's incredible. I don't care what anybody says about Hendon Hooker. He is a good quarterback, and he is lighting it up this year. Then you got Jaden Daniels on the other side who threw more, and he completed 32 out of 45 with 300 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. And Small had a terrific game. 22 carries, 127 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. And Brew McCoy, a name that I haven't even talked about this year, who has bounced around school after school, back to his school. He went from USC to Texas to USC, got in trouble over there after putting up decent yardage up there, and now he's with Tennessee. And 7 receptions, 140 yards receiving. Wow. He played a good ball game against LSU's secondary, who's supposed to be DBU, but what the hell happened? What the hell happened to LSU? Brian Kelly's play calling and just horrible, horrible play. I mean, Josh Heupel was just unbelievable as a coach. And they got a big game next week against Alabama. So y'all stay tuned for that take because that is College Game Day of the Week. Actually, it is the PMP College Game of the Week. So stay tuned for that one. Next game was last week's PMP Game of the Week, in my opinion. Number 17, TCU Horned Frogs, after beating the snot out of Oklahoma, 55-24. Scoring off against an unbeaten and a very surprising number 19 Kansas Jayhawk team, who has been the Cinderella story of this year. Well, Cinderella didn't get her magic, but played an excellent game of football. It ended up being the battle of the backups. Max Duggan, who has been a veteran, who has been a starter, was backing up Chandler Morris. Chandler Morris gets hurt. Then Max Duggan takes over, and he's got a rocket far up his ass, and he is just killing it this year. But Daniels, Jalen Daniels, who has been terrific this year, he ended up getting hurt in the second quarter, midway through the second quarter, and Bean had to step up. And I tell you what, backup quarterbacks this year, both on the collegiate level and pro level, have been outstanding. Bean, 16 for 24, 262 passing yards, 4 touchdowns against that Horned Frog defense, and 1 interception. And Max Duggan, 23 for 33, 308 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. A classic Big 12 matchup, and I expected Johnston to have a really good game, but 206 receiving yards? Jeez, man. Talk about a killer, a Jayhawk killer, man. But I'm more impressed with the way Kansas battled it out against TCU. TCU really didn't play their best game, in my opinion, but Kansas really showed the entire country that they could play with anybody and barely lose to TCU. Are you kidding me? And OU fans are saying they are going to kick Kansas' ass next week? You're joking. You're joking if you think that's going to happen. The only way that's going to happen is if you have Dylan Gabriel go off. And he has not been that consistent this year. But hats off to both teams for playing a hell of a game. 38-31, the Horned Frogs take it. I did pick TCU to win, so that makes me 4-0 now. Next game, not much of a game here. I knew that since KJ Jefferson was going to be hurt, Mississippi State was just going to be absolutely spreading the field, just like what my man over in Mississippi State right now, Mike Leach. Will Rogers, who broke the SEC passing, I believe he broke the passing yardage or passing touchdown record over in the SEC. But it doesn't matter because this kid's electric. 31 for 48, 395 passing yards. 395 passing yards for Mississippi State. 3 touchdowns. No interceptions. Now look over at Johnson. 17 carries, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. What did I say last week? Mike Leach's underrated quality is the run game in the air raid offense because nobody expects him to run the ball that much. 17 carries is more than enough, in my opinion. And Hazelwood had 3 receptions, 113 yards. Hornsby, who's a dual threat for Arkansas. Arkansas has dual threats as quarterbacks, and I love it. I love what Sam Pittman's doing over there at Fayetteville, but they are struggling bad right now. Hornsby, 8 for 17, 234 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. That's just inexperience. He'll get better as the weeks go on if KJ Jefferson doesn't come back in time. But he did have 8 carries and 114 yards. So Arkansas didn't have a bad game offensively except for the turnovers. The defense is what I was worried about. And Mississippi State proved it. Okay? Arkansas is not a bad team. They're pretty much in the same shoes as Texas A&M. They're not a bad team. It's just the roles are reversed. Offense is doing all right. Defense is not. Run defense, I expected a little better out of Arkansas, but like I said, air raid offense, you don't expect to run the ball unless you're Mike Leach. Next game was a game that I thought was going to be a bloodbath. In my own the way I said it, it is going to be a bloodbath. No, it wasn't. It was a scare in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I don't think this team should be ranked. To a 1-4 team, they almost lost to a 1-4 team. South Florida was up 10-7 in the first quarter, up at the half, 17-14. But then Cincinnati started to rally back, and it was a back-and-forth game. I mean, McClelland had a hell of a game, 21 carries, 179 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. But, man, oh, my God, what a fucking travesty that Cincinnati's a 5-1 team. With games like this, how do you expect to go back to the college football playoff? And how do you expect to be taken seriously as a top 25 team? But that's all I got on that game. I mean, I'm just very disappointed in Cincinnati. South Florida, way to go with competing, just came up short. Next game was not close at all. You could tell it wasn't close. It wasn't going to be close. Georgia, number 2 Georgia at the time, is facing Brian Harsin and the Auburn Tigers. I said Georgia was going to come in and play hard, and they were going to come out with vengeance, and they did. 42-10. Georgia beats the fuck out of Auburn. The score at the half was 14-0. They started off slow. And then after that, Georgia just unloaded on that Auburn defense. And I got to say, Georgia is not a first half team either. They are a second half team. Which, if you play against Tennessee next week, you're gonna lose. It's a good thing Alabama's playing next week for you, so you can watch the film that Nick Saban has against Tennessee. But Auburn, what the hell happened, man? I mean, this is probably the ugliest Auburn team that I've seen in a long while. I hope they get better throughout the year. But right now, Auburn's looking like the worst team in the SEC West right now. And that's not saying a whole lot right now. So, next game was I called it, 10-point spread. Great matchup. Great Big 12 matchup. One of the best non-appreciated rivalries, in my opinion. Underrated rivalry. Is Texas Tech at Stillwater against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. And I did say my sister was at that game. She had front row seats, okay? And worst of all, she was wearing a Pokes jersey, or not a jersey, but a hoodie. I never thought my sister would go to a college game and wear our enemy's colors, but it's okay. It's all right. She ain't going to wear it when we play against them next week. I'm sure. I'll be in Waco next week, actually. But, yeah, it was a great matchup. It looked like for a moment Oklahoma State was going to run away with it in the second or in the first quarter, and then Baron Morton, man, what a freaking game this kid had. Like, just a gunslinger, and he's a freshman. He's a freshman, and I love the way this kid plays. Let's take a look at the stats. Morton threw 62 attempts, 39 for 62, 379 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have a pick, but that was close to the end of the game. He was my favorite player to watch in that game. He fought hard. He was resilient, and even when he was hurt, he wanted to play the game, and he had a lot of heart. I give him my full respect, and I think he looked way better than Donovan Smith would ever play. But Spencer Sanders, he kind of had a weird game, like 22 for 45, 297 passing yards, and 1 touchdown. I mean, it was a weird game for him. Like, it was good, but it wasn't good enough. And then Sherroderick Thompson, 20 carries, 87 yards. I mean, he just couldn't get anything going for that Red Raider defense or offense. And Richardson, 19 carries, 67 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, he couldn't get any good yards. Bobby Green and Bradley, highlight receivers of the game for Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. Green for Oklahoma State, five receptions, 115 yards, 1 touchdown. Bradley, 8 receptions, 119 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown. This game was a banger of a game. I watched almost the entire game, and I was more impressed with Morton than I was with Sanders. I mean, that Texas Tech defense is legit, man. I mean, it brought a lot of pressure to Sanders, and I mean, yeah, they gave up 297 passing yards, but that front line is dangerous, and Richardson got a taste of it. But hats off to the Pokes for keeping the spread, and I won that spread. Where's my goddamn money? You know? But anyway, that's just a joke. Next game. Number 11, Utah. I thought this was a good game. Number 11, Utah. Traveling to UCLA. And boy, Thompson, Robinson, and Zach Charbonnet is 2 peas in a pod. DTR threw for 299 passing yards, 18 for 23. Only 5 incompletions in this game. 1 pick, but 4 tutties. Cameron Rising, he had a phenomenal game, but didn't throw a touchdown pass. He did throw an interception pass. 23 for 42, 287 passing yards. Zach Charbonnet almost ran 200 yards against that Utes defense. I thought he would have a little bit of trouble, but he said, fuck that. I don't have any trouble against this Utah Utes defense. I see why Florida beat Utah. And, man, what a game for Zach Charbonnet. 198 rushing yards with 22 carries. That's unreal stats. Oh, move Trey Hendrickson aside. Bijan Robinson, Blake Corum, and Zach Charbonnet. A former Michigan Wolverine, now UCLA Bruin. I love the way this kid plays. He's fast, and he hits the hole hard. He's crazy. DTR, he's grown in that quarterback position. He has been phenomenal. But this game was absolutely crazy. From the first quarter till UCLA put Utah out of their misery. With Zach Charbonnet running in for his first touchdown of the game, which was at 9 minutes, 26 seconds left in the game. 42-32, UCLA takes the victory. Next game. This game I thought would be a bigger bloodbath than I thought it would be, or that it showed. But man, CJ Stroud and that Buckeye offense. Electric. Marvin Harrison Jr. Electric. Julian Fleming. Amazing. Jaden Reed. Amazing. This is my argument about Georgia being number one. They are not going to compete against Ohio State with the way they've been playing in the last several weeks. Ohio State looks like right now the best college football team out there. And I know it's just Michigan State, but they put it on Michigan State. They allowed Michigan State to score with 5 minutes and 40 seconds left. And, I mean, CJ Stroud, 21 for 26, 361 passing yards, six touchdowns, and 1 interception. Trey Anderson, 19 carries, 118 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown. Egbuka, 5 receptions, 143 yards, 1 touchdown. Holy shit! This Ohio State team is incredible. What a bounce back after that Notre Dame win. And that was a bad game for Ohio State. So, yeah. Next game was a game. The score didn't really indicate the way this game went, okay? In the first half, it was sloppy for Ole Miss. They were down by 10 at one point. It was 13-3. And Ole Miss started to rally a little bit. Jordan Watkins with a 61-yard reception from Jackson Dart. And then before the end of the half, Quinshawn Judkins gets a 2-yard run for a touchdown with 21 seconds left to play. It's 20-17. Then Ole Miss gets back into rolling. By the time third quarter ends, it's 38-20. And then it was all Ole Miss after that. But the first half was not indicated as a good game for Ole Miss. Another second half team with a quarterback that is struggling right now. Jackson Dart, 25 for 32, 448 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Okay, it's not bad numbers, but the picks, man. He's got to learn to control the turnovers. Zach Evans actually was the leading rusher in this game. 11 carries, 80 yards, 1 touchdown. Jonathan Mingo, a receiver that the SEC's got to watch out for, and scouts in the NFL have to watch out for. Jonathan Mingo, 9 receptions, 247 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. And Swan still hasn't thrown a pick yet. What's up with defenses not being able to pick this guy off? 27 for 38, 281 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Davis, 27 carries, 105 yards rushing, and 1 touchdown. Final score, 52-28. Ole Miss rallies and wins against Vanderbilt. We're going to go by this real quickly. I'm just going to go over the scores. But Washington, I picked Washington to win. They actually get shocked, and they're stunned by Arizona State. The team without Herm Edwards, they're starting to win games now. 45-38, the Sun Devils beat the Huskies. Next game. A game that I thought Clemson would roll past Boston College, and they do. 31-3. The Clemson Tigers break it open in the second half, and they topple Boston College. Very underrated team, in my opinion, even though they're a second-half team. But I still think they can sneak into the playoffs. Undefeated. Next game, Washington State taking on USC. Like I said, it was going to be a 17-14 type of game, but USC had other plans in the second half. They ended up scoring 13 unanswered points in the second half, ended up winning 30-14 over the Cougs. Next game, South Carolina taking on number 13 Kentucky. And South Carolina, Spencer Rattler and company comes away with the upset, 24-14. Both teams are 4-2 now. Kentucky drops down to number 22 in the country now as they prepare against number 16 Mississippi State. Next game, Army taking on Wake Forest. And like I said, Sam Hartman and Wake Forest just absolutely crush the Army Black Knights. Sam Hartman, 13 for 19, 246 passing yards, 1 touchdown. Ellison had a great game, 11 carries, 96 yards, and 1 touchdown. Final score, 45-10. BYU squaring off against Notre Dame. I actually picked the upset to win this game, and they did, 28-20. Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman with three straight wins for the Fighting Irish. It seemed like once he converted into Catholicism, they started winning games. What's up with that? And the Fighting Irish will continue to impress as they are now 3-2. BYU, they will drop out of the top 25. Next game, number 20, Kansas State, in a defensive struggle against Iowa State, and it really had to come down with a field goal with 7 minutes and 14 seconds in the fourth quarter, and Kansas State pulls off the win 10-9, and they advance as a 5-1 team, and they have the bye week this week. Next game is a game that I'm willing to talk about more. Texas A&M squaring off against Alabama. And I got to say, I'm glad this game went the way it did. Because, not because A&M lost. I'm just saying, competitive, and it exposed Alabama. And I'm really upset for Haynes King. That was a bad call by Jimbo Fisher. I mean, why would you throw it when you're at the 3 freaking yard line to the only receiver to the right-hand side? Come on, Jimbo. You're smarter than that. And I'm giving you a lot of credit for what you actually deserve. You fucking fraud. You're one-dimensional, Mr. Jimbo Fisher. And delusional if you thought you had a chance to win that game based off of that. That was pathetic. And your play calling has cost this team 3 games now. One of them, you got blown the fuck out. One of them, you lost to a Sun Belt Conference team. And one of them, you had a chance to win the game. You had a chain in the backfield. You could have ran the ball with a chain, but instead, you give it to Haynes King, and he throws a pass to the outside that was uncatchable. Uncatchable. And there's Aggie fans that are saying, what the hell are we doing? And I have to agree. What the hell are you thinking, Jimbo? That was a terrible play call, and you should be relieved of your duties, and the buyout process should be beginning. But Alabama takes the win, 24-20. I thought Alabama played sloppy against Texas A&M. Milroe, he did throw 12 for 19, 111 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So he played okay. But turnovers, man, and it all comes with experience. I mean, I'll give credit where credit's due. Nick Saban makes the best situation out for his running backs or for his quarterbacks. But Milroe needs to learn. You got to calm down a bit, simmer down a little bit. And Bryce Young is one of my favorite players because he's all about the team. He doesn't care about his accolades or whatnot. Yeah, he won the Heisman last year. Who cares? He wants to win championships. That game last year left a sour taste in his mouth. And Will Anderson, who I think is having an off year, but he's still a phenomenal athlete. But Jahmyr Gibbs, 21 carries, 154 yards. I mean, A&M had a shot, guys. They had a shot. And this is exactly what I'm talking about with Jimbo Fisher. Overrated, fraudulent, and he is the worst type of coach that you can have. He's toxic. He doesn't care about anything but his play calls. You don't want a coach like that. I have played for a coach like that, and it sucks. You know when a play call's bad, you try to tell your coach, and your coach goes, nah, we're going to run it my way. When the game plan sucks, nothing's working. Nah, we're going to run it my way. Fuck that. Fuck that. If I'm A&M, I'm getting the process of buying them out going now. But great game defensively. Created turnovers and just Haynes King had a really phenomenal game for him. He's had a rough go at things. 25 for 46, 253 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. I mean, that 46 attempt is not Haynes King's fault. It is the play caller's fault for even throwing to the only freaking receiver that was covered by 3 Alabama defenders. You could have ran a draw, and you would have won the fucking game. Right there. But Jimbo is a fucking idiot, and a lot of A&M fans are seeing it. That 1/3 that is delusional and thinks that they're a bigger brand than the University of Texas, there's your result for bringing a fraudulent fool to your program. Kevin Sumlin was a better coach, in my opinion. And y'all are wondering, why, TJ, why? Because he was able to coach his guys. He was able to score points with that offense. Yeah, Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans. But he was able to score points after that. What is Jimbo doing besides have a good defense? He's not doing anything. So stop giving that man praise. And you know who I'm talking about when they're calling me one-dimensional and delusional. Jimbo Fisher is a quitter. Eventually, a good job will pop up, and he will leave Texas A&M. That 10-year contract is going to go bye-bye. So my recommendation for Texas A&M is to buy him out. You got enough money. We all do. Texas and Texas A&M. Buy him out. Let him walk out the fucking door. Take his personal problems elsewhere because Yeah, he's just a fucking idiot. I really can't stand him. I can't stand Brian Kelly. And it drives me fucking crazy. But next game, though, sorry about that. I had to rant. Was a game that I thought would go by 3. It ended up going by 2. NC State winning 19-17. And I got to say, this game was good. NC State was down 17-16 with 6 minutes and 33 seconds left to play. Christopher Dunn kicks a 27-yard field goal, and that NC State defense stops Jordan Travis and Florida State. Jordan Travis did not look good in this game. 15 for 30, 181 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks. Devin Leary, he did not look as good himself. It just shows you the ACC starting to become a defensive league. And Florida State, they're about to play Clemson at home next week. So we're about to see an interesting matchup in that category. We'll go over that here in a little while. But last game before we move on to week number 7. Número 6. Uno más. Number 12, Oregon travels to a 3-2 Arizona Wildcat team who last year was struggling bad. But Oregon comes in, and the Ducks fly and shit all over the Wildcats, 49-22. Bo Nix is starting to look good. He didn't throw a touchdown pass, but he's starting to look good. Whittington, 6 carries, 92 yards, and 1 touchdown. I mean, it was a great game for Bo Nix. He ran for 2 yards. DJ Williams for Arizona had a 52-yard run to give the Wildcats their first touchdown. But I tell you what, Bo Nix has wheels. And a lot of people don't realize that. But that concludes Week 6 recap, where my record was 19-2 for Week 6. Now, we're going to go into Week 7 predictions, and I'm going to try to run through this a little quicker than I want to, but I need to go to bed soon. But we got Iowa State, who is on a 0-3 streak in the Big 12, taking on a red-hot number 22 University of Texas Longhorns. Quinn Ewers taking on Deckers. Brock Robinson. Bijan Robinson. Xavier Worthy versus Xavier Hutchinson. And I got to say, Iowa State's offense hasn't looked that impressive this year. In the last couple of games, they've only scored. They haven't scored over 24 points in the last 3 Big 12 games. Texas, though, they haven't went under 34 points. So it's easy for me to say Texas is going to dominate in this game. I got them winning by plus numbers. I'm not going to say the score. I'm not going to say anything about the spread. Now, next game is a battle of undefeateds. Number 10, the Penn State Nittany Lions. Huge Big Ten implications. Squaring off against number 5, Michigan at Ann Arbor. Very interesting matchup. Sean Clifford taking on J.J. McCarthy, who won the job in Week 2. Blake Corum, who has been fantastic this season. It's going to come down to defense and the way these two teams start out in this game. It'll be a slow type of game, and then both offenses will click. Both defenses will play hard, but I got to give the edge to Michigan, man. I think that home crowd is going to rattle Sean Clifford a bit, and that Penn State Nittany Lion offense. I think that Michigan defense is for real, and I got the Wolverines winning this one. Next game should be an easier game to predict, but Jackson Dart has been struggling, and they have been a second half team. Ole Miss has. And Brian Arson, this is a must win for you, my man. I think if you lose this game, you're getting close to being fired if you don't win this game. Ole Miss is undefeated. They've had close games. They've had games that they didn't look impressive in, starting with the Tulsa game down to the Vanderbilt game. I'm going to say it's going to be close, and I'm going to go with Ole Miss in this game. I still think they're going to be bowl, or not just bowl eligible, but still undefeated. They're probably going to move up in the rankings. Next game, number 19. Still number 19 after that loss against TCU. Jalen Daniels, we don't know what his condition's going to be. At first, I saw on Twitter that he was going to be out for the rest of the season with a separated third grade separation on his shoulder. But then he came out and said, "What the hell are you talking about? My season ain't over yet." So we don't know if we're going to see Jalen Daniels. We don't know if we're going to see Dylan Gabriel. I'm pretty sure Dylan Gabriel is going to come back for Oklahoma. So this is going to be big for Oklahoma. This is a must-win for Brent Venables. They're on a 0-3 streak in the Big 12. Kansas, who has been red hot. But this is going to be a tough game, in my opinion, for both teams. But Oklahoma, their defense is absolutely terrible. And I got to say, you might call me crazy for this. I'm going with the Jayhawks to beat Oklahoma at Norman. I don't think the crowd's going to be excited to see this Oklahoma team. I don't think this Oklahoma team is that good to begin with. They played against tomato cans and then got smacked around by TCU, by Kansas State, by Texas. I mean, it's sad to see this Oklahoma team like this, but at the same time, it's amusing to me. But I'm going with the Jayhawks. Next game, you got number 24, Illinois, Tommy DeVito. No, number 24, 5-1, squaring off against Minnesota, who's 4-1. Ibrahim Brown, Morgan DeVito. I mean, two good offenses going at each other, one in the run game, one in the pass game. I mean, offensively, I give the edge to Minnesota, but defensively, since they play tougher teams, in my opinion, Illinois, I got to give the edge to, and they should have won against Indiana. And I'm sticking with the Fighting Illini. They're going to win this game, in my opinion. Next game should be a blowout. Should be a blowout. And I'm going to say it's going to be a blowout. I got Georgia against Vanderbilt winning big in this game. Next game, which is our game of the week for the Pigskin Mafia podcast. The next game will be the runner-up. But number 3, Alabama, with a close victory at home, is scoring off against number 6, Tennessee, who had a terrific game against LSU. They open up as the underdogs against Alabama. Is Bryce Young going to come back? This is a big game in Neyland Stadium. Will they play Rocky Top? This is going to be a packed crowd. I expect a full feel-good story in this game. Tennessee's offense has been good, but their defense has been very underrated. But Alabama, it's just something about them. They always have this voodoo magic that they end up winning in Neyland Stadium. And under Nick Saban, Tennessee has never beaten Alabama until this year. I am going with the Volunteers to beat Alabama. And I might be wrong this week. Maybe Alabama steps their game up. But they did not convince me against the A&M game. It was going to be an Alabama win if they were to blow out A&M. But they did not convince me. I got Tennessee winning in a close game. But I think Tennessee's going to win that game. Next game, who could have been a game of the week, might just be as good. And huge Big 12 implications since it's wide open. The last two remaining undefeated teams. Oklahoma State at 5-0, number 8 in the country, squaring off against an impressive number 13, TCU Horned Frogs, also 5-0. So battle for bowl eligibility and battle for claiming the top spot thus far in the season. This is going to be a huge game. Both offenses are going to be clicking. TCU's offense is number 1 in yardage. Oklahoma State, they're several yards away. Defensively, TCU looks impressive. Oklahoma State, they're in the mix. This is going to be a good game, folks. I am excited about this game. But Amon G. Carter is going to get the best out of Oklahoma State. But I am going with the Horned Frogs to win this game. And they will be bowl eligible. Next game, let's go. Another game of the week potential. Number 15, NC State, who is underdogs in this game. Squaring off against Schrader. And now the number 18, Syracuse Orange. Unbelievable story behind this team. 5-0. And they are a tough football team to play against. I mean, look at this. I mean, their total yardage allowed, 271 per game. They allow only 176 passing yards per game. NC State throws 230. But Devin Leary did not have a good game against Florida State. That defense was tough. Syracuse defense is tough, and I'm going with Syracuse in this game. Very impressed with the way Syracuse has been playing, and we're moving on to the next game. Another impressive team. Their first time in the FBS level, and they are already in the top 25. This team is making noise already. The James Madison Dukes are traveling to Georgia to take on the Georgia Southern Eagles. I got to tell you, man, this team is incredible. Centio, 15 touchdowns and 1 interception. I mean, James Madison was a FCS powerhouse with North Dakota State and Sam Houston State at the time. But I got to say, I love me some James Madison Dukes. And I can't wait until they play against Coastal Carolina. I'm going with the Dukes to beat the Georgia Southern Eagles And James Madison, I mean, whew, what a run they're having thus far. I mean, look at the teams they've beaten so far. Appalachian State. They beat the team that beat Miami University. Middle Tennessee State. Whooped their ass, 44-7. Beat Texas State, 40-13. Beat Arkansas State, 42-20. What makes this different? What type of game do you think James Madison's going to have? I think they're going to be bowl eligible. Next game is a tougher game for me to pick. Number 4 Clemson traveling to Tallahassee to take on the Florida State Seminoles. Jordan Travis, DJU, Will Shipley, Ward. This is going to be a phenomenal game. Low scoring affair, in my opinion. I think both defenses are good. I think both offenses are going to have a little bit of trouble. But this Clemson team is going to burst out in the second half. I think Clemson's going to take it. 2 more games, and we're almost done, folks. Next game is a red-hot number 16 Mississippi State Bulldogs squaring off against a team that has lost 2 straight. Number 22, Kentucky. Will Levis taking on Will Rogers. I thought this game would be a hell of a matchup, and boy, are we in for a treat. Mark Stoops taking on Mike Leach. 2 former Oklahoma assistants. Mark Stoops for his brother, Bob Stoops at the time. Mike Leach, same thing. He was an offense coordinator for Bob Stoops. This is a Bob Stoops matchup. Call it a Bob Stoops Bowl if you want to. Will Rogers, I mean, this kid's incredible. 22 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And he already has 2,110 yards. And he's only incompleted 80 passes, 202 out of 282. That is impressive. That is accuracy. And I got to say, the difference maker in this game is the defense. And I think Kentucky's going to have a lot of trouble against Mississippi State. I got the visiting Bulldogs winning this game. And I think they're going to do it pretty convincingly against good old Kentucky. Make them drop to 4-3. And Mike Leach will be thrilled, I'm sure. Probably won't give any more wedding advices. Stay alert, folks. Stay alert. Last but not least, another top 25 matchup that could have made it on to the game of the week. Number 20, Utah, who just came off of a loss at LA against a very tough UCLA ball club. Cameron Rising and the Utes try to bounce back as they take on the USC Trojans, number 7 in the country, undefeated and bowl eligible. Caleb Williams, Travis Dye, Jordan Addison. 3 big names in that team. USC is very impressive this year. I thought their defense has played a lot better throughout the weeks. And I got to say, I think Utah's going to be in trouble in this game against that pass attack from Caleb Williams and Travis Dye running the ball. I got USC winning this game. And that, my friends, concludes Week 7 predictions. Not very many games. It's top 25 matches. I don't have an unranked matchup in mind. It was sort of rushed on my part, and I do apologize in advance because I feel like I felt like this was rushed. But at the same time, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. I mean, it's a tough business. It's a tough thing to do, a podcast right after work. But I tell you what, I'm excited for college football. I'm excited for week 7. Who's going to be bowl eligible? Who's going to be ineligible? Take consideration for that. And I'm not talking about just top 25 bowl eligibility. I'm talking about unranked teams that are still bowl eligible. And we're going to see some really good football this week, in my opinion. We're going to see teams fighting out of desperation, possibly Oklahoma, possibly Iowa State. We're probably going to see Kentucky bounce back. Who knows? And we're probably going to have a showdown of a lifetime between number 3 Alabama and number 6 Tennessee. And I'm real excited. But at the end of the day, we are the greatest college football experts in all of YouTube and soon to be Spotify and whatever else we're going to be on. We are the cream of the crop. We are the PMP. Thank you very much for watching tonight, and may God bless every one of y'all. And stay tuned for next week as I talk about week 7 recap and week 8 predictions. And tune in tomorrow for NFL talk. That'll be fun. Talk about that boring ass game in Denver. And then we talk about great upsets. Let's go. Good night. Good night. Bang. Good night, everybody. Doing something different and I had to switch it up. Turned up in my section every night, we lit it up. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. Doing something different and I had to switch it up. Turned up in my section every night, we lit it up. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. This shit is exciting. Do it with the right team. My style, they biting. I'm striking like lightning. I'm bagging these bitch. I'm talking my shit. I'm bagging these bitch. I'm talking my shit. I'm about to get on your ass. I'ma just count some cash. I'm about to get on your ass. I'ma just count some cash. Doing something different, and I had to switch it up. Turns up in my section every night, we lit it up. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck. All my haters mad, but I don't give a fuck.